Welcome to the Produce Moms Podcast, where we believe there is a produce mom in all of us. I'm Lori Taylor, founder and CEO of the Produce Moms. For 10 years, I sold fresh produce to over 300 grocery stores in the U.S. And today, my team and I are fully focused on inspiring people to eat more fruits and vegetables. This show is just one of the ways that we hope to inspire you and your family to eat more produce and live a better life. If you like what you're hearing on the podcast, join our community of almost 40,000 in all 50 states and over 30 countries by visiting theproducemoms.com/subscribe. And be sure to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes. Thanks for being here. Enjoy today's show. Welcome back, everyone, to the Produce Moms Podcast. I'm very excited to welcome today's guest to the show. We are welcoming Kurt Wagaman. He is the GM at Superior Fresh. Kurt and I recently met when we were lobbying on Capitol Hill on all the critical issues as it relates to agriculture. And his story, the story of Superior Fresh, really just stuck with me. You all are going to love this. Superior Fresh is the largest aquaponics facility in the world. And this is going to be a fascinating show at Superior Fresh. They are specializing in leafy greens, Atlantic salmon, and steelhead. And did I mention that they are the largest aquaponics facility in the world? This is going to be a lot of fun, and we're all going to learn a lot, especially me. So, Kurt, welcome to the show.
It's my pleasure to be here, Lori.
Well, thank you. And, it's not Capitol Hill, but we're still talking about all the great things that you do at Superior Fresh. And I want to just kind of kick off today's show with that sentiment. Please help educate all of our listeners today. Who are you? What is Superior Fresh? How did this amazing world-renowned facility get started?
Well, thank you for having me again. Superior Fresh, like you said, is the largest aquaponic facility in the world, and it also is the first commercial land-based Atlantic salmon facility in the U.S. So what we started from was really a vision from our owners, Todd and Karen Wanick, the owners. Todd is the president and CEO of Ashley Furniture. Those two had the opportunity to travel the world while Todd was helping grow that business. And what they recognized was a real serious need to have good, clean, healthy, and organic food. And so Todd and Karen truly wanted to put their money where their mouth is. And it became evident to them that they had to find a sustainable way to grow, specifically leafy greens for a growing population estimated at 9 billion by 2050. And so that type of agriculture became their passion. They started studying that. And at the same time, our president, Brandon Gottsacker, was graduating from a school in the University of Wisconsin, Stevens Point, heavy in the fisheries and biology. And he had a dream to have an aquaculture facility. And so what happened is that those two got in touch. The plan for an aquaculture facility was born. There was much R&D, many dollars, and much time into looking at a flow-through system to grow walleye. And as a broodstock facility, we had that facility put up, and we got kind of getting ready to roll. And there were some things with discharge that we needed to start looking at, and we realized that those nutrients that we needed to mitigate in an aquaculture facility are really valuable. And so back to the drawing board they went. Brandon then went down to the Freshwater Institute in Shepherdstown, West Virginia, and spent a year under Dr. Steve Sommerfeld's tutelage. And that's when they decided, we're going to harness that nutrient-rich water. We're going to convert it to a usable form of nitrogen, and we're going to use that nutrient stream. We're going to do nutrient recycling. And we're going to take that and put it in a RAS system, which is recirculating aquaculture. And we're going to use that water to grow a lot of leafy greens. So that's kind of how it got started and what we're all about today.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so let's even take it down to a more basic level and make sure that all of our listeners understand just what is aquaponics. Can you please define that style of farming for all of our listeners?
I'd be happy to. Aquaponics, it's very simple to break it up when you think of two separate technologies. Hydroponics, everybody has heard that. That's where you're growing leafy greens in a greenhouse. Aquaculture is where you're raising fish in a facility. When you marry aquaculture and hydroponics, now you're talking aquaponics. So aquaponics is defined by the marrying of those two technologies. And what that does is give someone like us the ability to achieve organic certification, use a fraction of the land, a fraction of water, and I can get into that later, but we're able to really grow sustainably. And after our expansion that we're working on right now to go up to about 14 acres is complete, we'll be just under 8 million pounds annual.
Wow. And how many acres is the facility in Wisconsin?
So right now, our property is 800 acres. The facility it's currently 6 of glass. We're adding 8 more right now. In a calendar year, we'll be at 14. And then we have about a 2.5 acre fish facility.
Right. So obviously room for expansion. And when you take into consideration the footprint of the land or the facilities, and then you compare that to the outputs that you are able to, what the type of volume you're able to produce. What did you say that number was?
About 8 million pounds of leafy greens annual, and about 1.6 million of protein in fish form. Yeah.
Right. So very small footprint of the land to have those type of production numbers. And let's talk a little bit more about the sustainability of aquaponics as it relates to using the other natural resources. Well,
one thing that we try to do is, we really want to focus on nutrient recycling. We've really committed to RAS technology. That, once again, that's recirculating aquaculture. So we recycle 99.99% of our water. So as the water comes out of the ground, I'm oversimplifying, but after it goes through a fish gut and we digest that and convert it to a usable form of nitrogen, that water goes to the greenhouse in a deep water culture system. The plants are floating on these rafts. Their roots are uptaking the nutrients and then filtering that water, and the water is coming back to the fish house. So on a really nice day, average day in the fall like today, it's kind of Indian summer, you're probably looking at between 6 and 8 gallons a minute of makeup water, and that's it. And that's from the evapotranspiration in the plant. So the plants are letting the water out. All we're doing is adding in about what you'd run if you ran your kitchen sink. And that's getting that kind of production. Yep. And as far as the land piece, on the sustainability side, we've made a serious commitment to land restoration. So one of the big pieces that our owner Karen is strong about is, kind of that concept of leaving it better than when you got there. We have some dilapidated farms that were in the area that were all kind of a contiguous 800. And as we were able to get these, what we do is we reduce the erosion, we seed back the native prairie. We're constantly growing like banker acres of indigenous wildflowers to get the right kind of warbler to come back to feed. We're deforesting invasive species like black locust and buckthorn out of the oak savanna. We have probably 30 to 40 seasonal high school and college kids that'll be on site for the summertime that are, controlled burns, planting thousands of trees. Like I said about the wildflower plugs, it really is a restorative commitment. And we're up to about 300 acres of truly restored indigenous quality that Wisconsin would have been 150 years ago.
That's amazing. And, that just, to me, as you're saying all those things, I'm seeing Superior Fresh as really a solution to some of the threats and problems that agriculture is facing. I'm guessing you feel the same way, right, Kurt?
I sure do. That 0.01% that we don't recycle in the recirculating system, just to that point, Lori, once the water's been used and we've pulled out everything we can to give to those plants, we then send that to a man-made reed bed where we run it through filtration. We catch that as a solid, and then we capture that water and have it go to about a 5 million gallon retention pond that holds that water during the season where maybe the ground has frost in it. And then we land apply that to our organic wheat fields. So we have zero discharge to the surface waters of the state. And we're producing about what you'd need, between 600 and 800 acres of conventional land to do. And we're not leaning on the aquifers. We're not leaning on wild populations of salmon. And we're trying to get an alternative, sustainable agribusiness going.
Right. So how long has Superior Fresh been around?
We've been selling leafy greens for about 2 years now. And a year ago on the 4th of July, we sold our first fish.
Wow.
So I kind of, we're still young. I mean, we're still growing.
I'd say so. And so how would you say the consumer response as well as the food service response has been? I would assume chefs have to love what you're doing.
Yes. The private industry, the white tablecloth, that type of customer really likes our fish, and they also like our greens. They're finding it, flavorful. The consumer, in our neck of the woods, we define ourselves as local, so we try to keep things within, around 400 miles. That'd be a 8-hour trip at 50 miles an hour. So we're pretty heavy between, the Midwest market being Chicago and Minneapolis, but because it's cut and grown so close, we're able to celebrate an extended shelf life. We've got a really, really strong flavor profile. Folks know that it's certified organic, and in the head product specifically, the morphology of the plant itself is different than what some folks might see as, like a head of romaine. We don't have a big stalk area that you maybe cut before you would use. It's a very minimal button down on the bottom where it kind of attaches to the plug. So, they're able to use a lot of the yield is high, shelf life is incredible, flavor is incredible, and price is consistent.
Yeah, and I definitely think too, for the most informed consumer, the sustainability component is that really is the shining gold star here as I'm listening to your story.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I can honestly say that, the commitment to that piece carries as much gravity as, anyone would expect from a startup. I mean, we have such unique investors. I'm not in a room full of, VC folks that are all at their own comfort levels, consistent, how that can work. I truly have a couple that are philanthropically driven to make a legacy component out of this, to show that they're gonna use this as a flagship facility to, I say with air quotes, kind of, pay the tuition and to prove that this model will work. And right now I can tell you we're looking at sites on both the East and the West Coast.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. You should be. That's amazing. So any company that has this type of focus and commitment to sustainability also oftentimes has that, just kind of bleeds over naturally into community outreach and involvement. So tell us a little bit more about what Superior Fresh is doing as it relates to your community involvement in Wisconsin or anywhere.
Oh, yeah. Well, specifically on the land side, we do a lot of collaborating with local firemen, police officers. They'll come out and do controlled burns. They'll do, evacuation trainings. I've seen police dogs come out with the canine units to run some people down, which is kind of comical. But then we also will host, Boy Scouts, Girl Scout groups, FFA from local high schools. They'll do some winter camping classes. They'll go out on our lakes. We have a couple of man-made lakes that we're also restoring or bringing back indigenous fish. And they'll have like an ice fishing competition and orienteering and geocaching. So the site stuff is pretty fun to see. More on an academic level, I do we do a tremendous amount of collaboration with local universities, specifically the University of Wisconsin system and all of its affiliates.
Go Badgers.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, we've found them to be very, very collaborative, whether it be for tissue analysis or being a kind of a focus study for their marketing or sales capstone classes to use Superior Fresh for topics, everything ranging from linear and circular packaging to wind or solar applications for future building. So, yeah, I've even been asked to come in and do some programming advice as far as curriculum. What can students do to come out and be in such a fleggling industry and be successful? So I've helped certain industries or certain universities do that.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love it. I love everything that you've shared today in the podcast. And it's, I think that for a lot of our listeners, they're going to want to know where to go to learn more. So everyone, you must check out superiorfresh.com, superiorfresh.com. Their website's beautiful. It has this just gorgeous aerial view of the farm and all the surrounding acreage, the aquaponics facility and all the acreage. So, but Kurt, we have this lovely tradition at the Produce Moms podcast where our guests get the final word. So thank you so much for being part of our show today. And it's your turn to share any closing remarks and sign us off from today's show.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you again, Lori, for having me. It really is a pleasure. I could tell that you were a really successful person the first time we met in DC. I just want to let everybody know that, to us, this is a movement. This is a passion. It was the first time in my life I've ever been able to say I felt like I had the opportunity to be involved with something that was bigger than me. And everybody we have at the facility feels the same way. We're all wearing a lot of hats, but we're all trying to get this into a mainstream view. And I hope everybody out there gets a chance to check us out and hopefully grab the product at a local retailer near you.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Produce Moms podcast. If you or someone you know would like to be a featured guest, just send an email to lori@theproducemoms.com. We know there is a produce mom in you because there's a produce mom in all of us. Join our community on Facebook and all social platforms. Help us change the way America eats. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.